Stephanie Jones initiated this catastrophic sequence of events. And now Justin, thankfully, along with Jennifer Abel, are suing his former publicist, Stephanie Jones, alleging that she maliciously leaked texts that sparked the legal battle with Blake Lively. Whatever side you're on, both sides should be angry at Stephanie Jones for starting this mess in the first place.
What's up, people? It's your boy Caleb, and today we're diving into a Hollywood scandal that's seriously blowing my mind. Buckle up, because this story has more twists and turns than anything I've covered on this channel before. In Hollywood, image is absolutely everything, but what happens when that perfect image starts to crack? That's exactly what we're seeing right now in this explosive scandal that's rocking the entertainment industry to its core. At the center of this whole mess is Stephanie Jones, the founder of JonesWorks PR. If you don't know who she is, you're about to learn why this woman has become the most talked about publicist in Hollywood, and not for good reasons. Her spectacular downfall has pulled A-listers Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni into what court documents are calling an unprecedented breach of professional ethics. Trust me, no one's walking away from this looking good. Listen, I don't care which celebrity you're a fan of in this feud. I'm just following the evidence, and everything I'm seeing points to Stephanie Jones lighting this fire through what insiders are describing as calculated betrayal. But here's where it gets really interesting. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, that couple we've all loved for their seemingly perfect marriage and witty Instagram posts, they may have tried to use their star power to silence people who stood up to them. That's not me saying this. It's what's coming out in court documents. This whole saga started with the movie adaptation of It Ends With Us, you know, the Colleen Hoover bestseller. Blake starred alongside Justin Baldoni, who also directed. It should have been this massive success, bringing together a popular book, star power, and an important story about domestic violence. But behind the scenes, total chaos. After filming Wrapped and they moved into marketing, court documents suggest Blake felt she deserved way more money, even though she initially volunteered for extra work on the project. When Justin and Wayfair Studios didn't immediately give her what she wanted, things got ugly fast. Blake and Ryan launched this aggressive legal attack that has completely backfired on them. The irony here is unreal. The bombshell dropped when Justin Baldoni and former JonesWorks executive Jennifer Abel filed a lawsuit against Stephanie Jones. Their allegations sent shockwaves through Hollywood. They're saying Jones, the very person hired to protect Baldoni's image, basically sold his confidential information to Blake Lively's team. One industry veteran called it the most flagrant violation of client trust imaginable. And get this, Baldoni came with receipts. He brought evidence so compelling that even Hollywood insiders were left speechless. From the outside, JonesWorks PR looked like this elite professional operation. Their client list included heavy hitters like Dwayne Johnson, Jeff Bezos, Tom Brady, and recently, Blake Lively. But former employees tell a completely different story. They describe the place as, and I'm quoting directly here, a psychological war zone. Multiple sources confirm there was this constant atmosphere of fear where emotional breakdowns were just a normal Tuesday. One former executive told reporters, "The Office soundtrack was people trying not to cry." That's messed up, right? The allegations against Jones go way beyond just being a tough boss. Multiple sources say she would video call employees who called in sick just to visually confirm they weren't lying, including one particularly disturbing incident where she allegedly demanded an employee step away from a family member's funeral to prove they were actually there. According to sworn statements, she would blast music during staff reprimands so other employees couldn't hear her verbal assaults. And perhaps most disturbing, claims that she created fake social media accounts to harass former employees and journalists who dared to criticize her, including respected reporter Matt Bologna from Puck News. The situation hit its breaking point on August 21st, 2024. Jennifer Abel, a senior JonesWorks executive just days from her planned departure, showed up expecting a normal final week at the office. Instead, court documents show she walked into what her attorneys later described as an orchestrated professional ambush. When she arrived at JonesWorks' Beverly Hills location, Abel was directed to a conference room where a security guard positioned himself between her and the exit. At the table were a digital forensics specialist and a company attorney surrounded by paperwork. This wasn't a standard exit interview. It was what legal experts are now calling corporate intimidation tactics. Without any legal representation and under extreme pressure, Abel was allegedly forced into surrendering both her company laptop and her personal phone, a number she'd had since she was a teenager. teenager. Jones Works' operations director verbally promised Abel's her number would be transferred back within hours. According to sworn testimony, that promise was never kept. After handing over her devices, Ale immediately went to a Verizon store and spent nearly 4 hours trying to recover her number, but Jones Works executives ghosted her completely. Within 24 hours, Ale lost access to everything: her banking information, medical records, personal messages, and digital identity. Her entire online life had been effectively hijacked by her former employer. What happened next reveals the true motive behind this digital seizure, and this is where it gets really wild. The very same day Ale's phone was taken, Jones allegedly transferred its contents directly to Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's personal publicist. This wasn't some accidental leak. Court documents describe it as a premeditated transfer of unlawfully obtained personal communications. Messages from AL's phone were allegedly selectively edited, stripped of context, and weaponized by Lively's team against another Jones Works employee, Melissa Nathan. The timing is so precise that it suggests extensive advanced planning. The timeline exposes what looks like a calculated revenge plot. Jones had recently been fired with cause by Wayfair Studios, where she had been representing Justin Baldoni. Rather than accepting this professional setback, she immediately executed what appears to be a revenge strategy, allegedly using AL's confiscated communications to get in good with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Court filings suggest this wasn't just opportunistic, it was meticulously orchestrated payback. This power play gets even more complicated when you look at Jones's industry connections. She's married to Jason Hodess, a senior executive at WME, the very talent agency that represents both Lively and Reynolds. Legal documents show Hodess even contacted AL's fiance after her resignation in what looks like an attempt to pressure her into staying with the firm. Legal analysts suggest this relationship between Jones and WME likely influenced how aggressively Lively's team used the materials allegedly provided to them. What makes this story even more suspicious is that Stephanie Jones was curiously missing from Blake and Ryan's original lawsuit. Their legal complaint made all these explosive claims about a coordinated smear campaign against them, naming Justin Baldoni, Wayfair executives, and several publicists, but strategically excluded Jones, whose actions would later be exposed as the catalyst for the entire media storm. Newly revealed court documents show Stephanie was the very person who initially contacted the Daily Mail, igniting the media firestorm that Blake and Ryan would later claim was a conspiracy against them. This deliberate omission raises serious questions about what Blake and Ryan knew and when they knew it. When Wayfair discovered that Stephanie had breached confidentiality agreements by speaking directly to the press, they immediately fired her, viewing her actions as a serious violation of trust. But what Stephanie allegedly did next crossed both ethical and legal boundaries in what appears to be a desperate attempt to cover her tracks and shift blame to her employees. Lively and Reynolds' legal strategy has been widely criticized by industry experts. In what legal professionals now describe as a critical strategic error, they chose to sue individual employees, Jennifer Ale and Melissa Nathan, rather than targeting Jones Works as the corporate entity responsible for the alleged information breach. This wasn't a simple oversight, but a decision that exposed Lively and Reynolds to substantial counter-litigation while leaving Jones Works' founder and the individual allegedly responsible for the phone confiscation and data distribution completely untouched in their legal filings. The consequences were swift and severe. AL's legal team launched a powerful countersuit invoking California employment protections that dramatically reshaped the narrative. Her attorneys leveraged Labor Code Section 925, which specifically shields employees from being forced to litigate disputes outside their primary work state when their employment was predominantly based there. AL, who had been operating from Jones Works' Los Angeles office, serving primarily California-based clients like Wayfair Studios, was clearly protected under these provisions. Her countersuit includes multiple serious allegations: false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. These claims stem directly from the August 21st confrontation, where she was allegedly cornered, deprived of her devices, and pressured to sign documents under duress. The false imprisonment claim is supported by witness statements confirming the security contractor's positioning to prevent her exit during the device surrender, creating what her legal team argues constitutes unlawful unlawful confinement under California civil statutes. But perhaps the most damning revelation came from Ryan Reynolds himself, whose attempt to distance himself from the controversy collapsed under the weight of his own documented actions. While his motion to dismiss the counter lawsuit boldly claims he had absolutely no involvement with the film or its marketing, portraying himself as an innocent bystander dragged into the legal battle, a bombshell December 20th letter tells a completely different story. Before any lawsuits were publicly filed, Ryan's attorneys sent a cease and desist letter to Justin Baldoni, Wayfair Studios executives, and various publicists. The letter explicitly stated they represented Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their related entities, including but not limited to Betty Buzz, Blake Brown, Aviation Gin, Mint Mobile, and Maximum Effort Productions. Far from being an uninvolved party, Ryan was actually the first to threaten legal action. Complicating matters further were Lively and Reynolds' awkward media appearances during the initial controversy. At the Manhattan premiere of It Ends With Us on July 29, 2024, Lively appeared visibly uncomfortable responding to questions about the emerging social media backlash. Her interview with Entertainment Tonight featured vague references to misinformation and bad actors, without specific details. Media analysts immediately noted this evasiveness, fueling public speculation. Simultaneously, the couple attempted to distance themselves from the underlying dispute. Reynolds' legal statements maintained he had no substantive involvement with the film production or marketing strategy. This assertion was quickly contradicted by previously published interviews where Lively openly discussed Reynolds' contributions to script revisions, including statements made during a Kelly Clarkson Show appearance in March 2024. These inconsistencies with sworn legal declarations immediately attracted media scrutiny. Even more problematic were the emails released by Wayfair Studios confirming Reynolds' marketing company Maximum Effort had been consulted multiple times regarding branding and launch planning. Internal communications from June 2024, just weeks before the publicity crisis escalated, showed Maximum Effort team members reviewing promotional content and providing feedback. These contradictions have substantially strengthened AL's legal position. Text messages revealed in court showed Justin Baldoni explicitly stating he wanted no negative stories about Blake in the press, directly contradicting the narrative that he was orchestrating negative coverage. Far from trying to damage Blake's reputation, the evidence suggests Justin was actively trying to protect it, even as tensions escalated behind the scenes. This revelation undermines the central claim of Blake and Ryan's lawsuit, that Justin was leading a coordinated campaign to harm their public image. Public perception deteriorated rapidly. What began as skepticism regarding Lively's casting evolved into widespread criticism when reports surfaced that former team members were being legally targeted and publicly maligned. Media commentator Andy Signore of Popcorn Planet described the litigation campaign as a textbook case of weaponized litigation where former associates were being scapegoated to salvage a crumbling public narrative. Rather than appearing as victims of sabotage, Lively and Reynolds were increasingly perceived as aggressors abusing their power and influence. A particularly damaging component of AL's countersuit involves privacy violations. The filing alleges Jones unlawfully accessed, duplicated, and distributed personal information from AL's device, including private messages and emails. The violation becomes particularly severe considering AL's phone contained both personal correspondence and confidential client communications, including sensitive publicity matters for Wayfair Studios, Sony, and additional partners. Despite operating under strict confidentiality requirements herself, Jones allegedly had no hesitation in sharing those very communications with Lively's publicity team. As detailed in court documents, the hypocrisy is striking. Jones mandated absolute confidentiality from her staff. Her 2020 employment contracts defined confidentiality so broadly it encompassed even internal workflows and organizational structures. Yet Jones herself apparently violated these same principles by leaking client and employee information without consent or legal authorization. No legal subpoena was issued. No judicial order required disclosure. One significant figure who refused to remain silent was Jed Wallace, a crisis management specialist who found himself named in Lively's legal complaint. Wallace submitted a sworn declaration in October 2024, categorically denying all accusations against him. He stated under penalty of perjury that he never conducted any digital smear campaign, never manipulated online platforms, and never managed any form of social combat plan. Terminology used in Lively Lively's legal filings. Wallace maintained he was engaged by Melissa Nathan solely to monitor public sentiment with no active intervention. In his sworn testimony, Wallace disclosed that his firm, Street Relations, specializes in crisis mitigation for trauma victims. He emphatically stated he never instructed or compensated anyone to create content regarding Lively, Reynolds, Wayfair Studios, or Baldoni. Most significantly, Wallace explicitly declared, "I do not have a digital army in Los Angeles, New York, or anywhere else." He characterized the entire narrative constructed by Lively's legal team as fundamentally misrepresentative and factually incorrect. The irony hasn't been lost on anyone following this case. A film about confronting abuse and power imbalances has spawned a real-world legal battle that appears to exemplify those very dynamics. Blake, who portrayed a character escaping an abusive relationship in the film, now stands accused of using her power and influence to bully and intimidate those who stood in the way of her financial demands. The contrast between her on-screen persona and the allegations about her off-screen behavior has created a cognitive dissonance that's difficult for many fans to reconcile. Social media reactions to the unfolding legal drama highlight a growing skepticism about celebrity personas more generally. Comments across platforms question how much of Blake and Ryan's charming, self-deprecating public image was carefully manufactured, and what other aspects of their carefully curated lives might be equally artificial. This case has pulled back the curtain on celebrity image making in ways that few other scandals have managed to do. The financial stakes of this legal battle extend far beyond the immediate lawsuit. Blake and Ryan have built business empires partially founded on their likable public personas. Ryan's aviation gin sold for an estimated $610 million, while his ownership stake in Mint Mobile resulted in a reported $300 million when the company was acquired. Blake's Betty Buzz beverage line and other brand partnerships similarly rely on public goodwill. Every negative headline potentially impacts these business interests, raising the question of whether their aggressive legal strategy has already cost them more than they could have hoped to gain. Beyond the individuals involved, this controversy has opened broader conversations about the systemic misuse of publicity power in entertainment. Jones isn't the only publicity executive accused of manipulating media narratives or planting misleading stories, but her case stands out for its documented evidence trail, including message logs, device confiscation records, and witness statements, all illustrating how weaponized publicity operations function behind closed doors. This is no longer industry speculation, it's documented in publicly available court filings. The scandal also exposes how easily public figures can deflect accountability by targeting those with less institutional power. Rather than addressing Jones Works' role in the alleged privacy breach, Lively's legal team chose to pursue Jennifer A.L. and Melissa Nathan, employees with significantly less resources and influence. Both became professional scapegoats, while Jones remained unchallenged by Lively or Reynolds. Industry analysts suggest this wasn't coincidental, but deliberate strategy. If A.L. prevails in court, Jones Works, and by extension, Jones herself, could face substantial financial penalties, legal expenses, and reputational damage potentially devastating enough to collapse the firm entirely. Multiple former employees are reportedly preparing to come forward with additional testimony, including one who allegedly possesses video evidence of Jones verbally abusing staff within the Los Angeles office. The toxic workplace culture once only whispered about now faces serious legal scrutiny. The fundamental question now confronting Hollywood is whether this represents a genuine turning point. The entertainment industry has long relied on strategic publicity to craft narratives, silence internal critics, and shield influential figures. But as additional documents emerge and legal proceedings advance, the industry's traditional secrecy is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Each new court filing introduces additional evidence. Each overlooked non-disclosure agreement becomes a potential liability. Each high-profile silence now appears increasingly complicit. For Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, what began as an attempt to extract more money and punish perceived enemies has instead become their most damaging PR crisis yet, one entirely of their own making. The facade of Hollywood's perfect couple has cracked, revealing glimpses of entitlement, manipulation, and vindictiveness that cannot easily be repaired with charming interviews or self-deprecating social media posts. The real verdict may ultimately come not from a judge, but from a public that increasingly values values authenticity over carefully constructed celebrity personas. As this Hollywood saga continues to unfold, with new revelations emerging regularly, one thing has become abundantly clear. In the digital age, attempts to control narratives through legal intimidation often backfire spectacularly. The very lawsuit Blake and Ryan filed to protect their image has instead become the greatest threat to it, exposing contradictions and behaviors that might otherwise have remained hidden from public view. For a couple that built their brand on being relatable and authentic, this revelation of the gap between image and reality may prove to be their most damaging loss, regardless of how the legal case ultimately resolves. What began as typical film promotion has evolved into a watershed moment that could permanently transform how power and influence operate within the entertainment industry. As additional evidence surfaces and more industry insiders find courage to speak out, the true nature of celebrity image management and its human cost is being exposed in unprecedented detail. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the fam, and let me know in the comments what other Hollywood stories you want me to investigate next. This is Caleb from Caleb Speaks, signing out until next time.